Morning opens beside an existing bamboo hut in the damp forest. The young woman looks down at the empty patch below it as if she can already see two things at once, a small vegetable garden and a living space that is still about to grow. She begins by loosening the soil, slowly lifting out roots, weeds, and packed clumps of earth. Each stroke makes the bed flatter and softer, turning a rough patch of ground into a place that can actually hold new life. The even spacing shows that this is not work done for speed, but a careful step meant to give the whole bed a fair chance to grow. Once the soil is ready, she crouches close to the ground and places the first lettuce seedlings into position. Quick science note, lettuce grows best in loose, airy soil because its roots stay shallow and spread near the surface. When the soil is compacted, water and oxygen move less easily and the leaves usually stay smaller. She keeps planting row after row, letting small patches of green appear across the dark soil. The mood of the frame changes with it. What was empty ground now begins to carry rhythm, order, and the first clear signs of a real garden. After stepping back to look at the bed from a distance, she turns to the next need protecting it. The patch sits open on the hillside. The plants are still fragile, and a bamboo boundary will matter almost as much as the planting itself. Bamboo poles are dragged closer to the hut and cut into shorter lengths. From this point, the story clearly shifts from gardening into making, and the pile of bamboo on the ground signals that the new bed is about to be protected with material taken from the forest itself. She splits the bamboo into narrow slats and arranges them into small, even bundles. It is repetitive work, but necessary. because those nearly identical pieces will decide whether the final fence feels tidy and visually strong. The first stakes begin to go into the ground around the lettuce bed. After only a few placements, a rough outline appears, and even the small garden starts to feel cared for as a real part of this forest home. She works her way around the bed, adding more slats and adjusting the spacing between each stake. The fence is not built as a solid wall, but as a light bamboo rhythm that marks the boundary without shutting the forest out. As the zigzag border nears completion, the visual payoff becomes immediate. What began as freshly planted earth now has a clear edge and shape, and the small vegetables at the center already seem safer than they did before. She steps back and circles the bed again, correcting the pieces that still lean or sit unevenly. This checking phase is quiet, but it gives the garden the feeling of being finished with care, rather than rushed to completion. By the end of the first chapter, the lettuce bed sits neatly inside its bamboo fence beneath the hut. From here, the story changes scale. The garden stays behind as part of daily life, while the work ahead moves toward building a new structure beside it. On another patch of ground near the hut, she drags heavier bamboo poles into place and clears the area for a new build. The change of clothes and the larger materials make the shift unmistakable. This is the second chapter no longer about planting, but about expanding the living space. She marks the main points and sets the first upright posts into the ground. The frame is still very simple, yet those first straight lines already show that the new build is meant to serve a purpose, not just decorate the area beside the hut. Crossbars are lifted and tied between the posts. Turning separate poles into a rectangle the eye can read instantly. Even with the top still open, the frame already suggests shade storage and a resting space that will actually be used. The work continues through more measuring, cutting, and fitting as the main frame grows stronger. Compared with the garden work in the first half, the labor here feels heavier, and the difference shows in every lift brace and adjustment of the joints. Once the upper frame is stable, the real footprint of the new build begins to show. Seen beside the fenced garden and the existing bamboo hut, it reads, as a natural extension of daily life in the forest, rather than a separate object. The next phase changes the texture of the work as she prepares the bamboo pieces for the roof. From this point, the structure is no longer just outlining space. It is beginning to create real cover from sun and rain. Half-round bamboo tubes are laid across the top in a steady rhythm. Each new piece closes another gap, and the shade beneath thickens little by little, turning the bare frame into a shelter that can actually be used. When the roofline nears completion, the feeling of the whole build changes very quickly. Only minutes earlier, it was a simple arrangement of bamboo posts, but now it already looks like a place where tools can be stored, shade can be found, and daily routines can continue. The wall panel is assembled on the ground before being raised and fixed against the main frame. It is one of the most satisfying moments in the second chapter because with a single lift, the open shelter suddenly gains a face and looks far more complete. In the closing moments, the new bamboo shelter stands beside the fenced lettuce bed, and the older hut behind it, joining both chapters into one coherent living space. The video ends not with a dramatic shock, but with the feeling that this patch of forest has just been made more ordered, more protected, and more human. If you enjoy these forest garden and shelter builds, subscribe and leave a comment to support the next project.